welcomes you all in this 3-day webinar. On behalf of Indian Pharmaceutical Association and Servier, this is a joint collaboration for this 3 days program. I salute you for all the hard work that you have done during this COVID pandemic. तो आप सभी फार्मासिस्ट को और सभी जो सप्लाई चेन में है सभी को आपको सलाम करते हैं, आपको सल्यूट करते हैं। आपने जो काम किया है पिछले 3 महीनों में, you have worked as a frontline warrior for in fight of this COVID-19 pandemic. तो आप सभी को IPA की तरफ से एक सैल्यूट for all the good work and keep safe, keep healthy. Human beings or the pharmacist is a lifelong learner and we strongly believe in that. And because of that, IPA has many initiatives. IPA की तरफ से pharmacist की education के लिए काफी सारे initiative चलते हैं। उसी में से एक अभी जो कोविड के कारण इंस्टेड ऑफ टेकिंग सेमिनार्स और क्लासरूम सेशंस, हमने ये पॉलिसी चेंज की है कि बिकॉज ऑफ कोविड नाउ वी विल बी गोइंग डिजिटल। और ये डिजिटल education में one of the initial programs that we are having is with Serdia or Servier, and this is the 3-day webinar जो आप सभी के लिए हमने arrange किया है। इसमें काफी इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक्स है और काफी एक्सपर्ट्स फ्रॉम ऑल ओवर द कंट्री आपको कुछ अच्छे लेक्चर्स देने वाले हैं और जिसमें डिस्कशन भी होगा, ना कि सिर्फ आपको लेक्चर सुनने को आप लेक्चर सुनेंगे, लेकिन आपके जो प्रश्न है वो आप सभी ने बहुत सारे प्रश्न पहले भी अपने सबमिट किए हैं और भी कुछ क्वेश्चंस है तो आप जरूर हमें भेजिए। तो experts will try to answer all your queries, and this program will be delivered every day from 3 to 4 on all the 3 days, like starting from today 17, 18, 19, 3 से 4 तक ये प्रोग्राम चलेगा। हर दिन 2 लेक्चर्स होंगे और आपको ये सभी प्रोग्राम्स अटेंड करने हैं, सभी लेक्चर्स, ऑल 6 लेक्चर्स यू हैव टू अटेंड। उसके बाद आपको IPA और सर्वियर की तरफ से आपको ये सर्टिफिकेट दिया जाएगा। तो आप सभी फार्मासिस्ट का और सभी फार्मेसी एकेडमिशियंस, ऑल अदर फार्मेसी प्रोफेशनल्स जो यहाँ ज्वाइन हुए हैं, मैं आप सभी का फिर से एक बार IPA की तरफ से स्वागत करती हूँ एंड सर्वियर को धन्यवाद देती हूँ कि उन्होंने ये कोलैबोरेशन IPA के साथ किया है, जिसके कारण हम आपकी तरह आप तक पहुँच रहे हैं और ये एजुकेशन आपको ये 3 दिन प्रोग्राम में हम दे पा रहे हैं। With these introductory words, I would like to welcome Dr. Raja Reddy. He's the head marketing of Servier. Thank you, Raja Reddy, and your team, and Sameep Mukadam for all this bringing out this collaboration for this educational program. So over to Dr. Raja Reddy.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Serdia Pharmaceuticals and IPA, I warmly welcome you to this 3-day continuous updation program. But before I begin, I would like to thank Ms. Manjari. She has worked with my colleagues Sami, Kanmani and Ratul for more than a month to put up a program which would lead to a very good knowledge transfer, not only from professionals who are practicing pharmacy, but also academicians. And some of you might have heard about Servier Serdia. Many might not have heard. I thought it's an appropriate opportunity to introduce what Servier is. So I'm going to share some of my slides. It's just going to be a 5-minute, 4 slides. The idea is I just want to share what Servier is. I don't know how many of you are aware, Servier Serdia is, Serdia in India is basically the first 3 letters of Servier and last 3 letters of India. Servier, which is a parent company, is an international pharmaceutical company which is governed by a non-profit foundation. It might come as a surprise to you that a pharmaceutical company is governed by a non-profit foundation. And I will give you a reason why we chose to remain a non-profit foundation. Being a non-profit, the advantage for us is we do not have any other shareholders to please. So basically what happens is We are not running behind the stock market to please our shareholders. That's an advantage of being a non-profit. It also allows us to decide on research questions which may not be relevant for other pharmaceutical companies, not because they are not interesting, but their financial structure is so. So that is one of the advantages of being a non-profit. Now, what are the disadvantages? Because we are a non-profit foundation, access to capital is very challenging for us. That means with the limited capital we have, we need to allocate it properly into the right research ideas. That's a disadvantage. So basically the number of research drugs we would come out would be limited compared to other companies. But our founder, Dr. Jack Servier, when he was alive, he was of the principle that the money earned by pharmaceutical company should not belong to a family. That's why 3 of his children never inherited the wealth that is generated out of the pharmaceutical company Servier. So more than 100 million patients are treated worldwide in Servier through Servier medicines. In India, we are a small company, but if you're looking globally, Servier is a leader in cardiology medication, second in Europe and fifth worldwide. And there is one more change which I would like to point out to you, a big one. 25% of total turnover from Servier is invested back into research, 25% of our turnover. And just to give you an idea, the best pharmaceutical company in the world could be investing anywhere between 9 to 10% of their net profit. But in case of Servier, it is total 25% of our turnover. What does CERDIA support in India? We support Make in India program. That means all brands, what you see of CERDIA in India, except one, which is Coralon, which is totally imported. They are basically supported by manufacturing in India. One more factor, what I would like to point out to you, generally it is a perception, a lot of drugs which are manufactured in India would be considered as local products. More than 60 to 70% of the bulk drug in the country is imported from China. Whereas for Servier, it's no Chinese API. It's one API which is sourced from a single factory in the world in Paris. And it is to the EMEA standards. I'm not going to promote my products here, but there is one thing what I would like to tell you. If you have patients, for example, who come from Gulf or UK, they take Dimicron here, and you are aware of the price of Dimicron in India. This patient goes and buys Dimicron in Gulf. The same Dimicron is 4 times or 3 times more expensive. But I can tell you the quality for Servier medicines is similar world over. That means there is no India specific quality, Bangladesh specific quality, Sri Lanka specific quality. It is one quality the world over. So these are our principles. A non-profit foundation, more than 25% of our turnover is invested back into research. And these are the same products everywhere, which are in India, they are specifically supported under a Make in India program, and there is no Chinese API. I would like to thank all the healthcare professionals, more so the pharmacists who have been in the front line fighting the COVID-19, which is still continuing the threat. Without your possibility, it simply would have been impossible even to survive the lockdown, what we had, the stricter lockdown, what we had. Not just for medicines, you supported for most essentials as well. So a big thank you from Servier and CERDIA. So this was a small introduction which I would like to share. And I would like to hand over to the speakers. We have 2 wonderful speakers, Mr. Raj Vaidya, who's immediately going to speak on the role of pharmacists in COVID, pharmacists and COVID era, what is the new normal. He's the editor of the IPA Community Pharmacy Division eTimes. He has been the ex-vice president and chairman of IPA from 2006 to 12 for the Community Pharmacy Division. I would also like to thank Dr. Manjula Devi, Associate Professor from Sri Ramakrishna Institute of Paramedical Sciences. And She is a PhD with more than 46 publications, which are published both in national and international journals. And she has been actively involved in many of the CME programs. To both of you, thank you very much. So I would request now Mr. Raj Vaidya to take over the session, deliver his lecture, and move ahead with the proceedings. Thank you very much. Mr. Vaidya, can you take over the session?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to share my screen.
Yes, please.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to Sardia and of course to IPA for giving me this opportunity to take part in this webinar. As you see, I am a community pharmacist practicing in Goa. Already knows tourist in a very tiny state of 1.5 million. This is our pharmacy, which was started more than 100 years ago. This is our family-owned pharmacy, started by my grandfather, and then run by my father for more than 50 years. And now my wife and me, we are both looking after it. We sell allopathic, Ayurvedic, homeopathic, as well as veterinary medicines. We have 25 staff, including 6 pharmacists. We have nearly 500 walk-ins every day. This is the earlier normal situation. Now coming to this small fellow SARS-CoV virus, such a small thing, it has created havoc world over. It has given a big jolt to the world and all systems, the health systems, the hospital systems, the health professionals who have gone into fatigue. They have faced new challenges. They're trying out new treatments, trying to keep their best to keep the patients alive and also not get affected themselves and not die themselves. There have, of course, unfortunately been deaths also. And of course, there's an issue of lack of PPEs across the world. The number of cases, the death tolls we have been watching regularly, they have been alarming. This is a new era for all of us. First time that we are facing a pandemic of unexpected proportions. The public, the jobs, everybody has been jolted. Travel, tourism, entertainment, sports, everything has come to a grinding halt. The economy has faced very bitterly all over the world, and it is seen as the steepest slowdown since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Poverty and hunger soon is expected or likely to follow. Of course, it has always, it has been there in the past 2 months. It has been across the world, and there is an expectation that it could affect the world further. These are familiar faces, sights to us in India. We have seen how our own people have suffered. And while most people, professional, children, elderly, stayed at home, many lost their jobs. It is us the pharmacy staff who has been at work. Our business has been running, our activities has been running. So we have to be thankful for that. We have to go on. We have to keep a positive mindset. We don't have to lose heart. And that is what we are trying to project through this series, pharmacists, how they can go forward. Lots of WhatsApp news, lots of social media, how nature has hit back, how it has been closed, and how nature is blooming, animals are moving around freely, wildlife, everything, and including pollution. Pollution levels have improved considerably. So this definitely is a big lesson to mankind. We have done so much of development, so much of technology, advancements. We have even gone to the moon and the Mars, but we have been taken up beating at the hands of a tiny virus. Because we have learned our lessons, I hope the world over, and now we have to move forward and make the best out of it. Here I would like to reiterate our salute to the pharma COVID warriors in India, even though we may feel that we have not got recognition, but we, of course, the staff, the pharmacists and assistants and other helpers, the wholesalers, the stockists, their owners and their staff, those working in the hospital pharmacy settings, both private and public, the pharma companies, the medical representatives, our pharmacy associations, everybody has been working tirelessly, making medicines available across the country. It's us, the pharmacy personnel, besides other health workers who have not been able to stay at home. So we have made the best of whatever possible we could do. Now, with this also have come a lot of uncertainties. Lots of new information keeps coming about the virus, about its spread, how it is spread. Now there are worries whether there'll be a second peak and a third peak. News keeps changing, information keeps changing. And will I be in a containment area tomorrow? Will there be another lockdown? There are all these always uncertainties, I think, will continue for some times. Will this problem reduce? Will it end? Or do we learn to live with the virus, as we have been hearing now over the last 15 days? And another uncertainty, will there be more viruses? Will there be more mutations among the viruses? Will the next coming viruses, will they hit harder? And add to it, we have the infodemic. That is all false information, misleading information moving around, unauthentic, distorted. And it's thanks to social media. And very often it's media exposes or media trials which go on. And the public at large is exposed to this. A few examples are that something was moving around that COVID is not a virus, it's a bacteria. And there's lots of YouTube videos and videos floating around on immunity booster foods, products, medicines, and mattresses which cure corona, and using of talisman instead of masks to help cure corona. All this sort of information will keep coming. It's up to us. And of course, this, I think, sums it all. Everybody must have seen this WhatsApp message. So many remedies have been suggested on the social media. So we as pharmacists have to play our role. We have to apply our mind. We have to analyze which information is authentic, and always do a double check before we either forward it. And the other thing is, we as pharmacists, healthcare providers, a lot of people look forward to us to ask their queries. Maybe the clients, our own family members, neighbors, our patients who seek answers. It's not always that we can give immediate answers to all this social media information floating. Sometimes we may feel that our clients seem to be knowing more than us. And it's many times that it's the first time that we have heard what they are saying. First time they are saying that there is some new cure in the market. But we have to hesitate, we have to take a call, we have to do our
Hello. Manjari, would you like to? I think there is an internet connection issue.
Yeah. I'll call Raj if he can just speak instead of slides.
Yes, there is a power cut.
Oh, okay. So, so do you want Dr. Manjula to go ahead or?
I think better. We don't know how much time it will take.
Did you call him already?
Yes, message. There is a power cut.
Okay.
I think he's back online.
Yeah, he's back. He's back.
So can you hear us? वो क्या दिख रहा है ये? Live.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can see the slides also.
Okay. So various treatments and various news keeps coming and going. HCQ was in the limelight, it went off suddenly. Again, it came in the limelight, and different therapies, azithromycin and HCQ, combination of anti-HIV medicines, plasma therapy, remdesivir, and of course, in the last 4 days, new drugs have been tried out. They are claiming to have success. So all these things, information will keep changing. So we have to be alert. We have to keep looking at clinical trials, revised treatment guidelines, and different new publications. And there are uncertainties regarding the vaccine. When will the effective vaccine come into the market? How long will it be before I and my family would get it? Would lives be normal after the arrival of the vaccine? Or would it be necessary that the vaccine will have to be given every year, just like the flu shots, because the virus will it mutate? So all these things, uncertainties keep into our mind. So we as pharmacists have to keep ourselves updated. We have to keep improving our knowledge, equip ourselves with information, improve, get access to information on COVID-19 and the viruses, mutations, keep a track on vaccine development, new drugs or existing drugs and their treatments, new developments of corona and pharmacy. Now, we have to rely on authentic sources. There's a lot of information available on the internet, but we have to be careful what we select. So while selecting and reading scientific articles and findings, we have to look at webinars as well as reliable websites. And a lot of information is available, like, for example, the FIP.org coronavirus. This website is dedicated to provide latest information and updates on coronavirus. This is of the International Pharmacy Federation. And there is the WHO website, and there is WWW-ASHP, that is the American Health System Pharmacists. They have a COVID-19 dedicated page for that. Then there is the Commonwealth Pharmacy Association, our IPA's website, ipapharma.org, and the e-times, which we come out with once in 2 months. So the next issue for e-times, we are trying to dedicate it to COVID. And of course, there is a learning site, e-learning site, that is coursera.org, currently a continuing education program with credits on COVID is available. So we pharmacists can also get into that. Now, coming to our own health, the pharmacists and our staff working in the pharmacies, we need to be well fit ourselves. So we have to look after our health, our mind and body. We have to keep for that a very good immunity. So we need to follow good hygiene practices, personal level, as well as the sanitation in and around the pharmacy, and of course the environmental level. We need to have good nutrition, good healthy eating practices, eat local, as they say, traditionally grown foods, and avoid the junk foods and fast foods or anything which can make us unhealthy. Very important is physical activity and exercises. Very often, when we work for long hours as pharmacists or health providers, we often tend to neglect this because we are so engrossed sometimes in our work. So, we need to also concentrate on this. There are other things like yoga, meditation, all these things are important. So, we have to sit back and see what are the things we have to do. Is it something wrong that we have been doing? And what are the things that we should change? We need to rethink. What about our long hours of work? Some of us work 10 hours, 12 hours. Pharmacies keep open for very long times. Sundays, holidays, aren't they important? Don't we need to give some quality time to ourselves and the family? Don't we need to have a balance of work and pleasure? These are the things we have to keep a deep thinking about. Of course, hygiene has always been there because there is always the saying which we have learned from our childhood: cleanliness is godliness. And I think COVID has once again brought it to fore. So hygiene as a routine at the pharmacy is must. Going back to the basics, needed for safety of our pharmacy personnel as well as to our family when we go back from the pharmacy. It's also for the safety of the clients who are visiting us. So it's not just because of SARS CoV-2, but also to reduce infection and transmission and keep in control other viruses as well as other bacteria. So cleanliness at the pharmacy of prime importance, personal hygiene very important, and keeping hygiene as well as distancing practices. Now, reducing infections and the use of antimicrobials. This is very important because antimicrobial resistance or AMR is a silently emerging pandemic and it's a worldwide problem, just as statistics show. And unfortunately, India is one of the hotbeds of that. We need to have strict control over the use of antibiotics. And we as chemists, the way we dispense antibiotics, we need to have good control of that. Self-medication of antibiotics, selling medicine, antibiotics without prescriptions. We need to have a strict review of that. I think COVID has shown us the way, and we need to stick and learn from COVID. Now, cleanliness in the pharmacy, we have to build in that habit. Regular cleaning, the use of disinfectants, use different disinfectants, alternate between them, and use the right concentration and use the right types. It's not because just it's the COVID era. Otherwise, also in general, we have to do that. So we need to have cleaning protocols and cleaning schedules in place. We need to have standard operation procedures for cleaning in our pharmacy, for hygiene procedures, and it's very important that documentation of all this cleaning activity which is done has to be written down. IPA had come up with good pharmacy practices 15 years back. I think they still hold good. In the COVID and post-COVID era, we need to do a little tweaking of that. But I think all of us, all of you should follow these good pharmacy practices and adapt them to the post-COVID era, maybe stressing on hygiene, but all the other things, all the different
trying to call Mr. Raj Vaidya. Hello. Dr. Manjula, I think will it be okay if we start the session? Because we're not able to get in touch with Raj Vaidya. So Dr. Manjula, I just need to unmute you.
Sorry for the interruption. We apologize for the inconvenience caused. Manjiri ma'am, we'll proceed with the second topic for now. So, your comments.
Yes, please. It looks like there is power interruption recurrently in Panji. Can't help such things. So I request Dr. Manjula to take the session, and Raj can come back at the end of Dr. Manjula's session. Thank you, Dr. Manjula, for joining, for accepting our invitation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. Good afternoon and welcome to my presentation on the topic OTC medications, roles and responsibilities. I thank IPA and Serdia Pharmaceuticals for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I also take this opportunity to thank my beloved principal, Professor Dr. T.K. Ravi sir, who has given me this platform. Thank you, sir. This topic, OTC medications, roles and responsibilities, has been already discussed several times. But in the current scenario, it is very essential for all retail pharmacists of our country to revisit this particular topic because patients restrict movements, they restrict hospital visits, they depend mainly on a nearby hospital pharmacy for OTC medications and even for treating sometimes major ailments. As the OTC purchase increases, we know self-medication and irrational use of medicines also increase in our country. So this presentation should give us some current update about over-the-counter drugs, their harmful effects, current regulations for OTC drugs in India, and more importantly, we have to see how retail pharmacists can help in preventing or reducing drug-related problems due to over-the-counter drugs, and how he can facilitate over-the-counter medication management by following a systematic approach. That is the aim of this presentation. Now, let us look into the global current status of Indian OTC market. This is what I have shown in the slide is a survey report by the Nicholas Hall group of companies, which revealed that our country is in top 10 countries list in terms of OTC market in the globe. And we continue to be in this position for the last few years. And we are serving as a powerhouse behind global OTC growth. Our OTC formulation alone account for 21% of total Indian market revenue. And this market is expected to grow to $6.5 billion by the year 2026. Our Indian or domestic retail market, OTC retail market, is also very strong. In 2008, we had 550,000 pharmacies in India, whereas, please note, we have more than 9 lakh pharmacies in India today. And there is no, as we all know, there is no separate list for OTC drugs in India today. And patients can purchase these medications without a prescription freely. So people visit more often a retail pharmacy than visiting a doctor. I came across a very interesting report from US stating that consumers visit a pharmacy 26 times in a year, whereas on an average, they visit doctor only 3 times. So here are the segments of pharmaceutical OTC market in India. These include mainly analgesics, cough and cold medicines, vitamins, nutritional supplements, gastrointestinal products, dermatological products, weight loss products, and few herbal products also. The global OTC segment also includes the same type of categories of medication, but they also include few ophthalmic products and sleeping aids also in the global OTC list. Now, I would like to have your attention on two important reports about self-medication in India. Actually, there are many small studies. I just included these two reports. According to a study published in the Indian Journal of Pharmacology in the year 2016, analgesics were the most frequently purchased OTC drug, followed by gastrointestinal products and antihistamines. Another study published in the Indian Journal of Community Medicine says that when 20,000 people in 10 cities of India were surveyed, they found that 52% of Indians were self-medicating. These two reports give us a message that for these many people to self-medicate in our country, our community pharmacy is the important source. And also it arises a question, what is the basic reason behind this widespread self-medication in our country? We know telehealth, robotics, genomics, artificial intelligence are the defining areas for our current and future healthcare. There is, at the same time, there is a large group of medically underserved population in our country, especially our rural population. And World Health Organization estimates that the total coverage or average coverage of essential services is around 56% of the population, meaning 600 million people in our country fail to access healthcare. Please note, 600 million people in India fail to access healthcare, and 63 million are in poverty. WHO recommends a doctor to patient ratio of population ratio of 1:1,000 for India, whereas for us currently it is 1:1,456. And for nursing ratio also, we have only 1.8 nurse per 1,000 population, but the actual recommendation is 4 nurse per 1,000 population. So there is a poor access to medicine in the pharmacy of the world. When the underlying cause for self-medication is the status of our universal health coverage status, the most commonly given self-medication reasons are easy availability, affordability, time saving, money saving, convenient, crowd avoidance. There are so many reasons given for self-medication. And also there is a difficulty in getting transportation and increasing healthcare expenditure and so on. On the other hand, our country is experiencing a digital revolution. Technology is transferring our healthcare sector in India. Health-related videos, apps are increasing. So accordingly, the health-seeking behavior of people is also changing. So that is also a compelling reason for self-medication in a country like India. So as we all know, self-medication is dangerous. It can cause various drug-related problems, adverse reactions, allergies, etc. So we have to see some details about some harmful drugs. And let us start from a simple drug, oral rehydration salt. See, it looks like very simple, but when patient comes for purchasing ORS, and if the patient is having kidney problem or liver cirrhosis or heart problem or electrolyte disturbance, the pharmacist is supposed to advise them to consult a physician. And also they should advise them how to prepare the solution of ORS depending upon the package size or the weight of the product in the package. And unused solution should be discarded after preparation, and they should not be used after 24 hours. And here is the chart given by WHO for measuring the volume of ORS solution to be given. So especially for children, if we know the weight of the child, just multiply the weight of the child in kg by 75 ml to get the volume given. But if you don't have the child's weight, then select approximate amount by according to the child's age. So this WHO table gives both weight and age in the chart, which can be, this advice can be given by the pharmacist to the patients when they approach for purchasing ORS. And also tell them edematous or puffy eyelids are the sign of overhydration, overhydration. And feeding bottles should never be used for administering ORS solution. And precautions are essential if the patient is already having hypertension or other cardiovascular diseases. And concurrent use with potassium containing drugs also should be taken care because there is interaction. Now let us see few most harmful OTC drugs. I would like to start with analgesics because a few studies conducted in the Department of Pharmacy Practice of College of Pharmacy SRIPMS also revealed that analgesics are the most frequently used over-the-counter medication. Among the analgesics, I just wish to start with acetaminophen because it is the most widely preferred choice of analgesic. Apart from the current restriction in the sale of paracetamol over the counter because of the pandemic and misuse, one community pharmacist has to remember few important points when it comes to paracetamol. One is about the overdosing of paracetamol. Second is about long-term use of paracetamol, and third is dosing of paracetamol in pediatrics. Regarding overdosing, because acetaminophen is present in multiple over-the-counter products, like which are used for treating cough and cold, pain, allergies, etc. And normally, liver will eliminate paracetamol from our body. But when the concentration increases, the metabolite of acetaminophen will irreversibly bind with the liver, causing dangerous liver toxicity. So overdosing should be avoided, and pharmacists should help patients in avoiding overdosage. Next is about long-term use of paracetamol. When taking paracetamol for long-term or in high dose, the blood flow to the liver decreases, leading to kidney damage. Long-term use of acetaminophen also can cause heart attack, stroke, and high blood pressure, and also liver damage as well as kidney damage because of the low blood flow. Dosing in pediatrics is the one area where pharmacist has to be very careful. If the patient is pediatric, then give them guidance about dosing of paracetamol using dosing chart, which is given in the product itself, and dosing cup, which comes along with the product. The recommended dosing of pediatrics is 15 mg per kg of acetaminophen. And confirm the patient, the consumer, know the strength of the paracetamol what they purchase. Whether it is 120 mg per ml or 250 mg per ml or in either concentration. And tell them not to give paracetamol for babies less than 2 months, and not to give more than 4 doses in 24 hours or maximum 5 doses, and not to give for more than 3 days without informing the doctor. And leave at least 4 hours gap between each dose. And one important reminder is about storage. Tell them to store paracetamol or any other over-the-counter medicine out of sight of children and out of reach of children, and protect them from sunlight. Another very harmful over-the-counter drug, which I want to mention here, is ibuprofen. We know our stomach has 3 sensitive lining. It has defense mechanisms. Our stomach has sensitive lining, and there are 3 different defensive mechanisms: the mucous membrane, bicarbonate, and blood circulation. Mucous membrane will form a coat and protect the sensitive layer. Bicarbonate will neutralize the acid, and blood circulation will renew the cells. What the NSAIDs or ibuprofen does is it will destroy completely the protective mechanism of the sensitive layer and form ulcer. And also remember, ibuprofen is contraindicated in patients who have asthma, urticaria, or allergic reactions after taking aspirin or other NSAIDs. Now, potential interactions of pain relievers also should be taken into consideration when the patient is coming to purchase over-the-counter medication. Most of the pain relievers will interact with alcohol, causing GI bleeding and kidney disorders. With antihypertensives, they cause increase in the BP, especially with ARBs and ACEs. With anticoagulants, bleeding complications. With antidepressants also, especially with SSRIs, there is bleeding complication. So these 4 important interactions of pain relievers should be taken care of when the consumers are coming to purchase over-the-counter pain relievers. Next, we move on to some very commonly used but dangerous, if used inappropriately, dangerous over-the-counter cough and cold medications. We know many cough and cold medications and anti-allergic medications contain antihistamines, dextromethorphan, in short DXM, and pseudoephedrine. Pseudoephedrine is present in many decongestants and anti-allergic formulations. What it does, pseudoephedrine will shrink all the swollen nasal membrane. It will not cause any drowsiness, but it is actually a stimulant. So it is good. It will not cause drowsiness, but it is a stimulant. It gives a lot of energy, alertness, and euphoria. As a result, there is a tendency for the patient to abuse pseudoephedrine containing products. Many allergy medications claim to be non-drowsy. We know that. Long-term use of such products can cause high blood pressure, shortness of breath, and seizures, irregular heart rate, and stroke and abdominal pain, as well as psychosis. Cough and cold medicine is one of the most commonly abused, most dangerous OTC drugs because they cause deep sedation and hallucinations when abused at high doses. The active ingredient behind this effect of cough and cold medication is dextromethorphan, in short DXM. DXM is actually an opioid, but it is not an analgesic. It works in central nervous system. It can cause dangerously elevated heart rate, high blood pressure, slurred speech, and vision loss. Long-term effect of DXM is memory loss. So, and I hope all of you will agree with me that there is a vitamin D trend in India. That is, people are overdosing actually vitamin D, but overuse can cause, especially when the plasma level of vitamin D goes above 150 nanogram per ml, it can cause liver damage. Because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, body cannot easily eliminate vitamin D from the body. It will accumulate and easily it can go to toxicity. When the vitamin D level increases, our body calcium level also increases. When the calcium level goes up, it goes and binds to various tissues. It goes and binds to kidney, causing kidney damage. And the bones also will become brittle, causing osteoporosis, and there is always hypercalcemia. Diet pills also, it is not safe because they will accelerate the metabolism and increases the suppresses the appetite, and there is a high tendency for tolerance. So patients always will like to take the next higher dose, and they will get addicted to diet pills, and they can cause heart and digestive system disorders and even mental health disorders. So in order to give a safe medication therapy, we should have, our retail pharmacists should follow a systematic approach in providing patient care. First step, there are 4 steps. First step is patient assessment, and second step is choosing appropriate OTC drug for them, and third is patient counseling, and fourth is patient follow-up. So in assessment process, they should find out, they should gather or analyze patient information in order to choose the best treatment option for the patient. But unfortunately, in India, the information gathering process is inconsistent. What information they should ask is about patient identity, whether he is a geriatric patient, pediatric patient, or elderly, because all these are vulnerable population. They will easily get affected due to a wrong using of a drug wrongly, or choosing a wrong product. So they should find out patient identity, signs and symptoms, action taken by the patient, medical history, medication history, and they should analyze in terms of contraindications and drug-drug interactions, allergies, and any possible adverse drug reactions. So for making a proper pharmacist-directed decision making, first pharmacist should carefully listen to the patient's complaint and then assess the patient. Once the appropriate drug is selected, he can counsel the patient on how to take, when to take, how long to take, and how to store the medication. Certain lifestyle modification also can be given by the pharmacist. But if you feel that the patient is not a suitable case for OTC drug, he must be referred to the doctor. Providing patient counseling is one of the important good dispensing pharmacy practice for community pharmacists. And next is follow-up of the patient. Follow up the patient, and for which we need a clear documentation. Document every essential information in a register in the pharmacy, including all purchase details. And patient profiles can be created in the pharmacy computer, and drug information resources like books and electronic media can also be saved in the pharmacy's computer system, so that he can follow up the patient, he can guide him and advise him and provide best pharmaceutical care services. And in order to give them best advice, and in order to choose the best or a most appropriate OTC drug, pharmacists should have some resource. Adequate resource is essential for him to update, and then only we can give. And I personally found these, I have gone through several resources which gives good information about OTC drugs, and I personally felt these are very good sources. The American Pharmacists Association resource, it is a resource guide to pharmacists. Global Respiratory Infection Partnership, Pharmaceutical Society of Australia's self-care program, World Gastroenterology Organization, there is global guidelines for community-based management of common gastrointestinal symptoms. Reflex and Heartburn as self-care model, it is of USA's. Then CHPA's OTC Academy. CHPA stands for Consumer Healthcare Products Association, again it is of USA. And India's OPPI, finally, Organization of Pharmaceutical Producers of India. They are also planning to come up with many educational materials, especially for OTC drugs in India. Now, we have to see some information about current regulation of OTC drugs in India. We know at present, there is no definition for OTC medicines in India. The medicines which does not fall in Schedule H, H1 and X can be given without a prescription. The government is soon going to come up with a clear OTC list for us under a separate schedule. And they may also bring OTC 1 and OTC 2, two different categories based upon the safety and efficacy of the drug. So what we can expect from the regulatory authority very soon is 4 items. One is official list for OTC drugs. Second is regulation for switching of prescription drugs to OTC drugs. Then third is regulation for purchase or approval, purchase, distribution, and sale of OTC drugs, and even for storage of OTC drugs. And fourth one is regulation for advertisement of OTC drugs. So we may expect these kind of regulation just like Western countries very soon. Actually, I have gone through all the schedules and I could find that there are 23 schedules to Drugs and Cosmetics Act and rules. And I'm not discussing here about all the schedules, but I just want to mention here that at present, we can find aspirin, paracetamol, antacid preparations, inhalers, inhalers containing drugs for treatment of cough and cold conditions, and oral rehydration salts, etc. All these simple medications are present in the Schedule K. We can find them in Schedule K. Okay, but now we have to compare what is the regulatory status of Western countries. Just I'm not going to explain in detail here, but we have to understand that they have a very clear separate list for OTC drugs and well-defined regulations for controlling the OTC market as well as the purchase, store, distribution, and storage of OTC drugs. In USA, they have category 1 and 2, and there is all drugs, all OTC drugs are included in their OTC monograph. And in European Union countries, there are 2 categories again, pharmacy medicines and general sales medicines. Pharmacy medicines are not available for self-medication. To be noted, pharmacy medications are not available for self-medication, but they are sold only under the supervision of a registered pharmacy practitioner. Whereas general sales medicines can be purchased even from a supermarket. Even China is having a well-regulated OTC medicine. Now, we have to see by how we can optimize the use of over-the-counter medications in our country. We have to think in terms of regulatory, pharma industry, academia, and retail pharmacists. From the regulatory, we need strict regulation for classification, purchase, distribution, and sale of OTC medicines. Also, we need good support from the regulatory to the retail pharmacists. And we need, our retail pharmacists need better training on pharmacovigilance and material-vigilance program in India to strengthen their knowledge. And we also want or need societies and standalone committees exclusively for OTC medicines in India. Pharma industry is also having responsibility for the safe use of OTC medicines in India. Prescription, especially prescription to OTC switching, should follow well-recorded data. It should be a data-driven switching for drugs from prescription status to OTC status. In other words, proper consumer studies should be carried out before switching to OTC status. And switch only if the drug is very safe, effective, and there is low potential for misuse. And just shifting from a business-driven research to a research-driven business will be more ideal for pharma companies, as it will support or as it will safeguard patients. Also, I want to mention about labels. Labels should be easily readable, simple, with a bigger font size, because in our country, if we notice right now, the labels of different OTC products are having different font size. Some are very small, very difficult to read and understand the instructions, especially for geriatric patients and even for people with a normal vision. So the label should be straightforward, simple, and label should provide all basic information about the drug to the patient, like name of the drug, use, dosage, directions, warnings, etc. There is an FDA guideline for how to put the label for OTC drugs, and that should be followed uniformly until we get a new regulation for OTC drug labeling. Pharma industries can follow the directions given by FDA. So in short, what I want to say here is all stakeholders, including academia. Academia has to involve in a lot of research, humanistic research, outcome-based research, self-medication practices in India. All these can be studied, and they have an important role in strengthening the knowledge base. That is the main role of academia and our country's academicians in the pharmacy field, especially those who are in practice of pharmacy, should be utilized well to educate or to provide continuing pharmacy professional development programs for our community pharmacists. So all stakeholders, regulatory, pharma industry, academia, and pharmacists, retail pharmacists, including our consumers, all should come together and join hands together to optimize and rationalize the use of OTC medicines in India. And before I conclude, I just want to say some points about bioethics principles for community pharmacists, because ethical behavior and ethical decision making is highly demanded from a community pharmacist in India. Because along with he must be having vast pharmaceutical knowledge, but retail pharmacists will be highly appreciated if he or she has bioethics thinking culture. And basically, the inner motivation or the inner behavior for ethical behavior for them comes from self-love and love for others. So they have to be more dedicated and more sincere towards their patient. Here, I just show few articles. There are 28 articles in the UNESCO Principles of Bioethics for healthcare professionals, out of which I just highlight here, which is very important for community pharmacists. Article 4, benefit and harm. Article 5, autonomy and individual responsibility. Article 6, consent. Article 7, persons without the capacity to consent. Article 8 says about respect for human vulnerability and personal integrity. Article 9, privacy and confidentiality of patients. Article 14, social responsibility and health. Article 16, protecting future generation. I have shown here a picture. This I just showed to tell you about isotretinoin ointment, which is used by women. It is available OTC. It is used by women for having a glowing face, especially if they have acne or acne vulgaris. This particular cream helps to come out of it, and it provides a very good outcome. But the problem is even topical use of isotretinoin is very harmful. It is a teratogen, and there are number of reports saying that it can cause cardiovascular abnormalities, parathyroid hormone deficiency, ear abnormalities, thymus gland abnormality, and even the shape of the head is protruded like this. So, knowing that pharmacist, we have to think now whether the pharmacist has to dispense isotretinoin for a woman who just want to beautify her face texture, complexion, or whether he has to tell her, especially if she is a woman of childbearing age, he has to advise her and protect or safeguard the future generation. So I feel this is the most important principles which community pharmacists should always bear in their mind while they are doing service to their patients. So I would like to conclude my presentation by saying that OTC drugs and community pharmacy gives the best practice opportunity for our retail pharmacists. In the face of COVID-19 pandemic, self-care and self-medication is likely to become important in the coming days. So with well-informed consumers, retail pharmacists will be able to ensure medication safety and reduce drug-related problems with OTC medicines. I hope this presentation is helpful to our retail pharmacists, to a certain extent at least, to rediscover the essence of value-added service and make a difference from now. So I thank IPA for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I also thank Ceridia Pharmaceuticals for this opportunity, and also Head of Marketing and Medicals, Servier Pharmaceuticals. And I also thank Madam, Dr. Manjari Madam, who is the Vice President of IPA, for coming over here, for your nice words, Madam, and for organizing me and for including me in this program. And more importantly, I want to thank the President of IPA, Professor Dr. T.V. Narayana Sir, for having this thought and for organizing this wonderful program. And I have to thank my beloved principal, Professor Dr. T.K. Ravi Sir, who gave me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, sir. And I have to thank Dr. Kanmani, Project Manager, Cardiology Division, Servier Pharmaceuticals, for her wonderful way of communicating and organizing for the last few days. Thank you, Dr. Kanmani. And at last, not the least, I thank all the participants for your patient listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manjula. A very informative session. I think thanks to you, we have lots of questions coming in. But the good thing is also that we have Mr. Raj Vaidya back online. So I think, sir, at least because of the internet connectivity issues, he would like to speak without the slides. So I'll hand over to Mr. Raj Vaidya, sir, to continue with his presentation.
My apologies for the disconnections. I'll continue from where I left off. So correct hand washing techniques are important, and frequent hand washing, and the staff needs to be instructed to stay away from work if they are having any influenza-like illness or symptoms. It needs to be emphasized time and again to the staff when they are at the counter or at work that they should not be touching their masks or mouth or nose. Unknowingly, it does happen once in a while. So there is a need to keep watch on that. So unless they wash, they should not touch it, because many times they are on the counter for 4 hours, 5 hours at a stretch. At the same time, when they go home, they need to be instructed what care to be taken. So it is very important for regular reminders as well as staff training. So we need to have that listed as an SOP. Here is an example of SOP we have made in our pharmacy for the pharmacy staff regarding their masks. Share of demo, short training program which is going on for hand hygiene. For protection of pharmacy staff, it is important to give them training on mask etiquettes, how to put them, how to remove them, masks, how to handle them carefully, how for washing, if they're reusable ones or safe disposal. We need to keep reminding our staff through WhatsApp messages, posters, or videos, because their health is important. Their hygiene and health is very much important. And this is a poster which we made, which is applicable both to staff as well as our clients. But very often clients walk in and they don't know the right etiquettes, how to handle masks. So this is what we display in our video at the pharmacy or circulate it through WhatsApp, so that awareness is built up. Now these are our latest posters which we have got done. This is regarding handling of masks and not to remove them, because a habit of patients which we have seen over the last few months, when they come inside the pharmacy, they want to remove it because they want to speak. So continuous education is important for protection of our staff as well as for public. Then physical distancing. By now, everybody in the country, all over the world now is talking about social distancing. Keep their distance among themselves as well as to keep their distance from the patients. Because when they have tea breaks, lunch break, then also they have to be careful. Now, these are different measures which are being used in different places of the world. The down photo here is from the UK. This photo here was in the initial phases of COVID in our own pharmacy, when we had the carpenters were not there, the painters were not there. So we had to make our own posters. We had to make our own barriers. This is a sofa which we have put in front of the counter initially. so that customers are used to come and fall on the counter. That's an old habit across the country. So we also had to do some innovations. And when time permitted, when painters were available, carpenters were available, we got these barriers done, we got these squares done, which is of course a phenomenon now everywhere. Now these are some nice ways which we can also put it up in our pharmacies. This is adapted from the pharmacy team. From the internet, I have picked it up. These are different for the pharmacist. It depends on which area you are, how each one is willing to take what type of risks, because we are always on the front line. These are options available to pharmacists or pharmacy staff, whether they want to use face shields or goggles or gloves, or there are pharmacies who have put up acrylic protections at their counter. And the additional measures are limiting the number of customers inside the pharmacy, minimum contact time, and if feasible, when the pharmacies are small, many times the customers are asked to wait outside the pharmacy. This I think most of us have been practicing, and we may have to continue to practice it for some time because of the uncertainties. And these are some measures which we can try to use so that we receive in advance orders from the patients, so that the contact time at the pharmacy is at a minimum through telephone, WhatsApp, email, or some app, so that patients can come and collect the parcel when they are ready. And of course, home delivery has been going on. We have to thrash out what is the legality for that. Right now, it's going on. Nobody is objecting, nobody is commenting. But in the long run, that's not correct. It's important to follow and implement the law. So proper legal systems need to be in place. Unfortunately, currently in our country, there is a lot of disorder and mess. But I feel we need to address these queries about online sales, about authenticity of prescription, authenticity of sales without prescriptions, and the new things which are happening now in digital India, teleconsultations, e-prescriptions, home deliveries. We need to have some foolproof system in place. And the drug regulatory system has to implement the law. This is of prime importance. If the pharmacy profession in our country has to have raised standards, this is important. Implementation of the law and following of the law. Then in the COVID era, let's not also forget other illnesses, because there are plenty of them. And we have to also go back to our old ways. We have to also see out to our old patients, to our same patients who have right now been careful or over careful about COVID. A lot of communicable diseases will pop up now because of the monsoon setting in. Day after tomorrow, Mrs. Manjiri will speak about that. Then there is TB. It's still the number one killer in our country, and the chronic diseases, diabetes, hypertension, asthma, arthritis, then handling minor ailments and knowing when to refer. Dr. Manjula has given an excellent presentation. So we need to upgrade our skills to be competent in doing that, so that OTC medicines and home remedies can be used to handle minor ailments of patients. And we have to continue to serve our patients and to continue to serve our profession. Now, there has been a lot of issues about recognition of pharmacists and pharmacies. Of course, a lot given to the doctors and the nurses, and pharmacists did not seem to figure in that. So for that, we have to do certain things ourselves, whether it's the association, whether it's the different association, whether it's the pharmacy owners or the pharmacists. The pharmacist must always be present. If the pharmacist is not present, his recognition, his projection will be very difficult. We have to change from being traders to professionals. We have to build in that passion in us, in the pharmacists, and we have to equip ourselves with knowledge and then provide professional services. I'm sure only then recognition will come automatically. And to create this atmosphere, the professional atmosphere, everybody's cooperation is needed, right from the drug regulators to all the associations. Now, one more thing which is important is education and continuing education. We strongly need to improve the quality of pharmacy education in our country vis-a-vis practicing pharmacists. So the pharmacists who come out to practice in community pharmacies have to be well equipped to practice pharmacy. Unfortunately, it's not so well at present. And the next step is to have continuing education programs for all practicing pharmacists. We seriously need to upgrade our pharmacy professional skills. And this applies to me also. I also feel that need. It's very important to keep ourselves upgraded. It's COVID. Maybe it has opened everybody's eyes. It has shown everybody the way. And today digital learning is here probably to stay. It's also probably the new way forward. That's how we are meeting each other. And I'm happy to be sharing some information with you. So for continuing education, responsibilities have to be taken up and we need to work together. Maybe the professional pharmacy associations, like the Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and there's also another IP, Indian Pharmacists Association, the APTI, IHPA, IPGA. It's everybody's responsibility. It's also responsibility of AICD, of the Pharmacy Council and the state councils, and also very important are the pharmacy colleges, because that is the place where education comes up. And of course, the pharmacy company support is also important. So we all need to come together, create that conducive atmosphere and provide professional pharmacy practice education to pharmacists in our not have recognized degrees, but they are also a very important part in our community. So they also need to be upgraded. Now the uncertainties will continue. We are unsure how long this will go on. One thing of disadvantage in this is the shop time between the patient and the pharmacist. Everybody seems to be in a hurry. Don't wait for too long because there is a lot of queue. That personal bond of the pharmacy and the client is somehow reduced. Maybe and hopefully it will be temporary, but we still then need to continue to provide our patient instructions, our patient counseling and advice, whether it's now in this uncertain period, COVID, or it is later on. But we have to try our best to do it through other means, even in these times. So we need to provide basic instructions and whatever little exposure we can have with the patients, provide them with dosage stickers or labels, provide patient information leaflets, provide instructions through text messages or WhatsApp. We have to innovate. It could also be telephonic instructions to the patient or counseling over the telephone. So these are some written information material, which is very important to be given to the patient. This can be made in local languages regarding the hypertension or blood sugar or regarding the antibiotic, why it is important to complete the dose and so many other things. In patient dosage labels, which many of our chemists are doing in the country, we need to continue to do that. And we need to stress that that's important. If we are not meeting the patient, at least we can do this so that we are able to communicate some. We have been selling a lot of this. There's no need to feel guilty. It is part of our business. It is part of our profession. Many of us have faced a lot of difficulties or drop in sales. So we need to also make up sometimes. And these are to be considered as health accessories. I'm sure we can go ahead selling our gloves, masks, sanitizer and other things, because we also need to make up somewhere. We also have to remain professional, and at the same time, we have to look after our pockets also. So in conclusion, we need to keep going forward. We need to keep learning. We need to innovate. With changing times, we have to change. With the challenges coming forward, we have to change. We need to take care of our health, keep ourselves healthy, boost our immune system so that we don't fall sick. It's not necessarily COVID. It could be other viruses. It could be other infections. It could be other illnesses. We need to keep fit. And the situation can keep changing around us at different times. We could be at different stages of restrictions and unlocking. We never know when we might again fall in a containment zone or in a lockdown zone. Again, there might be some spikes. So we have to face this. We have to look after the frequently changing SOPs in our country or in our local areas. Many of our chemist friends have been practicing under severe lockdown conditions. That's the real challenge that they have been through. Because each one has its challenges. So we should not panic. At the same time, we have to take maximum care of ourselves. Keep learning, gather authentic information, disseminate the right information, and take very good care of your patients. I think I'll end there. Thank you very much for the opportunity given. I hope I've been able to convey what best possible I could so that we can take the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raj Vaidya. I think despite all the connectivity issues, I think we ended up having a very nice, informative session that we can see in the comments window that, I think the last 1 hour or so, we have had more than 200 comments coming in, which means that, of course, we will not have time to address each one of them. So broadly from our side, from Servier's side, we just wanted to give out two messages. One is that quite a few questions are there wherein we will be covering them in tomorrow's and day after tomorrow's session as well. So please be with us for the next 2 days so that you will get the answers to your questions. There are quite a few questions about certificates, how and when you will be able to get the certificate. So firstly, it's a 3-day course, and we will need your attendance for all 3 days for issuing out the certificates, which of course we will share at the end of the third day how you will be getting the certificates. So if you all remain throughout with us for the next 2 days, you'll be surely getting more answers to your questions. So because of the paucity of time, we will not be able to spend much time with the questions, but we can always just ask a couple of questions to both the speakers. So if I start with Dr. Manjula Devi, I think Madam had a lot of questions. One question which kind of merges both the two topics is that lots of patients are coming to the pharmacist asking about immunity boosting medicines. This can be vitamin D, this can be vitamin C. Any recommendations from you about immunity boosting medicines that can be prescribed with this?
That's a very good question. Actually, there is a mega vitamin therapy going on now. People don't want to get the infection, so they overload with many vitamins. Even vitamin A is very harmful. Vitamin A can accumulate in the liver for a long term. If they consume more, it can get accumulated, and it can form oxalates in the kidney. It can lead to kidney stone formation. So vitamin A is not safe. Too much is not safe. Vitamin D is not safe. Like too much. I mean, too much of vitamin D. We have a sunshine. It is a sunshine vitamin. Vitamin D is directly from sunshine, and there are number of natural food which is a good supplement for vitamin D. So what we can advise them is to go for more of natural sources instead of overloading with formulations, pharmaceuticals. That is my suggestion. Thank you.
Unmute.
Yeah, next question for you, sir. This is from Mr. Asfaq Qureshi. A very common question for pharmacists, which is people come and ask about masks, which are the best one to use, and is there any benefit of dipping the mask in a disinfectant on a regular basis or before going out?
See, for most people, whatever is recommended in the country is simple homemade masks are very important, and it is important to wear even that 2-layered homemade cloth mask, which can be washed again and again. It can be made at home, and of course they are available in plenty of numbers in chemists and also general shops. So even in our pharmacy we use 2-layered cloth masks. For our pharmacies, because we are in frequent touch with people, we recommend that our staff changes them every 4 hours. So every break they change their masks. So the new ones they bring along with them and they put them. And when they go home, they wash them. They are washed with soap and water, good warm water. The other important thing which we keep stressing to them is do not touch your mask. So whenever you are at the counter, see that you don't touch your mask. As long as your hands don't touch your mouth, nose, mask, face, you are quite safe and away from the virus. So if we have repeatedly have been telling our staff this. And in between, wash your hands with soap and water. We are fortunate to have soap and water with us in our pharmacy. If there is an urgency, they are asked to do it with hand sanitizer.
Thank you, sir. Uh, can we just take one last question? I think it's already 4:30, but I think it's a summation of a lot of questions which are asked, which is again to Dr. Manjula. The question is that uh, firstly, when you are giving out OTC medications, when do you tell the patient that when is the right time to consult a doctor? And is there like a lot of pharmacists? The question is that they have people employed in the pharmacies. What is the easiest way to identify whether a medication is OTC or not? So two questions into one: how to best identify whether a medication is OTC, and when do you tell the patient that it's time to consult a doctor?
First thing is the pharmacist should use adequate resources. First, they should learn from good, reliable, authenticated resources whether the patient is the right candidate for OTC medicine or whether the patient is the right candidate for using that particular medicine. If he feels that he is not, then he should be advised, the patient should be advised to consult the doctor. But again, how to find out whether he is a right candidate or not is by using these algorithms. I have shown various good resources for helping pharmacists to understand. These sites give you very good algorithms those algorithms help you to understand or help you to assess the patient and choose the right medication and in a particular category itself which is the best suiting OTC medication for that patient and how to counsel him, what are the counseling tips for him and how to overcome interactions and how to manage his drug interactions in the prescriptions. Full guidance is given by these algorithms which are given in these resources which I have mentioned. So first of all, the pharmacist has to update himself. He has to be strong himself in his subject, and then he will be able to decide. So that is what we say the term pharmacist-directed decision making. For that, pharmacist should be adequately or well equipped or well knowledge person. Then he can, if he feels the patient is not a good candidate or right candidate for OTC medication, he should immediately advise him to go to the doctor. Thank you.
So,
Sami,
yes.
hello.
Yes.
Yeah, just to add to what Dr. Manjula said, how to identify which is OTC and which is a prescription product. So the basic guideline is on all prescription products, that is Schedule H, H1X, there is a red line on the left side of the drug label. So on the left-hand side, there is a bright red line, vertical line. Also, the RX will be written and there will be a warning in the box on all prescription products. The warning will be in a red box. So Schedule H warning. So to be purchased only on the prescription of a RMP. So if this is not there on the label, it is going to be a non-prescription product, that is an OTC product. So that's what right now, at least, so there is nothing written as non-prescription product on our label so far. In foreign countries, yes, it is written, or there are some kind of markings like a particular dot or some kind of coding. So right now we don't have it, but maybe when we have an OTC list made by the government, maybe that will also eventually come. And if the person has, if the patient's symptoms are serious, that has to be checked by the pharmacist. If the symptoms are serious, we need to just immediately refer the patient to the doctor. In case of minor symptoms, for 2 to 3 days maximum, an OTC product can be taken. Not longer than that. If the patient still has the symptoms, the pharmacist must direct the patient to the appropriate doctor. So OTC medicines are also serious medicines if taken in overdose or taken for longer time. So this has to be remembered. Good questions.
I think it's time to wrap up now for the first day of this IPA certificate course for best practices in pharmacy management. We're already 30 minutes over time, but I don't think it was one dull moment throughout the last 1.5 hours. So please, we can wrap up today. Thank you, Mr. Raj Vaidya. Thank you, Dr. Manjula, for keeping us is informed and just keeping the entire session lively, even though we kind of stretched over time. And for the audience, tomorrow again we will start at 3 p.m. and hopefully we will be able to conclude on time tomorrow. And so please join us as it's it's a 3-day course, and certificates of course will be issued based on the attendance for all the 3 days. So thank you so much for joining us today. Have a very good day. Thank you, Dr. Manjari.